The story starts with a guy named Gilbert, who showed up in court because he had committed check fraud at banks. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail. Gilbert went to prison, but after just 6 months, he escaped and crossed the border into Canada. Once in Canada, he tried to find a job selling ice cream, but first, he needed to show his ID. The problem was, Gilbert didn't have any ID at all. Feeling frustrated, he started to walk away. That's when he saw a beggar on the street. Gilbert offered the beggar $2 in exchange for his ID. He bought a card and decided to call himself Robert. Then he gave his ID to the ice cream seller. That evening, he reached a dharamshala, a place where travelers from far-off places stay. After knocking on the door several times, a girl named Andrea opened it, and Gilbert stayed there that night. The next morning, he started selling ice cream and began making some money. But maybe luck wasn't on his side because soon the ice cream company went broke. In the end, to forget his troubles, he went to a bar to drink. This time, the owner was... There was a gangster named Tommy, who the police were also after, but they didn't have any solid evidence against him, so they couldn't arrest him. Anyway, while he was stepping outside, he bumped into a cop named Gilbert Sindes. Gilbert was there to spy on Tommy. Later, Gilbert went back home and asked Andrea out on a date. Soon, they started falling for each other and began living together. One day, when Gilbert came home, he read in the newspaper that the US government was going all out to find Tommy. Gilbert got a little nervous, and she decided to tell Andrea the whole truth. Meanwhile, Andrea was in the washroom when suddenly her face lit up. Turns out, she was going to be Gilbert's baby's mom. She wanted to go out and share the good news with Gilbert, but before she could, Gilbert said he was leaving for a few days on a business trip. Soon, Gilbert reached Vancouver to fool the police. There, he started looking for a job again, but no one was willing to hire him. Then, out of nowhere, he saw 2 men taking money out of a truck and heading to the bank. Then it clicked in his mind, and soon he found out that Andrea was pregnant, which only made him more determined. Gilbert immediately barged into the bank, looking around carefully at everything. After that, he went into a shop, claimed to be an actor, and bought some clothes to change his appearance. In no time, he disguised himself as a security guard and got back into the bank. He met with the bank manager and started inspecting the security there. Then he went to the camera server room and gathered all the information. At the same time, he took some silicone. He learned the art of changing his face with skin and ended up stealing a silicone nose from there. Finally, on the day of the robbery, disguised, he went to the bank to pull off his first heist. He went to Jessica's desk and handed her a note that said, "Don't scream." Then, showing the gun hidden in his pocket, he ordered Jessica to hand over all the money. Scared, Jessica gave him all the cash, but Gilbert didn't have anywhere to keep the money now. So Jessica put it in her purse and handed it over to him. Meanwhile, Gilbert's fake nose started coming off, about to blow his cover. He was supposed to, but as soon as he got the chance, he stuck with it. Finally, once the job was done, he returned the clothes to the shop and packed all the money into a suitcase. After that, he rushed straight to the airport, but a new problem popped up. He saw that his suitcase would go through an X-ray scan, and if they found the money, he'd be busted. So he quickly hid some cash in his underwear and went back to the checking area. Then he found out that domestic flights don't actually have X-ray checks. Anyway, when he got home, Andrea was waiting for him with hopeful eyes. He had his new... Gilbert arrived home with something he'd bought a little while ago. But once again, he didn't tell Andrea the truth. He lied, saying he was managing the family business. Meanwhile, the police were busy investigating the theft. Detective Hoffman suspected that gangster Tommy was behind it. Then Cinder asked the police commander for permission to arrest Tommy, but they still didn't have any solid evidence. So, Cinder and the team would have to dig deeper themselves to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Gilbert needed more money to pull off bigger heists. That's why he went to meet Tommy at the bar. Pointing at the bank across the street, he said he could rob it in just 3 minutes. If he pulled it off, Tommy would give him a $100 loan, which Gilbert would have to pay back in 5 months. Tommy agreed, and Gilbert went right up to the bank. Within moments, he disguised himself as a worker, slipped inside, and in just 3 minutes, he came back through the bar's back door with the money. Tommy was stunned to see him. Slowly, Gilbert started doing bigger and bigger heists the same way. After every robbery, he used to escape to another city by domestic flight so he wouldn't get caught, which is why he became famous as the Gilbert Flying Bandit. By then, he had robbed about 36 banks and soon got so rich that he bought a bunch of expensive cars and watches. Besides that, he kept the rest of the money safely locked up in his safe. Pretty soon, he started mingling with the rich. After he paid off Tommy's debt, Tommy offered him a job to rob a jewelry store. Meanwhile, Sanders was still trying hard to catch Tommy with clean hands. The operation was named Project Cafe, and the team started keeping a close eye on every move Tommy made, who he met, and when. So Sins first planned to catch Tommy's key henchmen, Bishop and Dave. They also had pictures of Gilbert, but didn't know who he really was. Meanwhile, Gilbert was at home when Andrea suddenly walked into his room. Gilbert had a bunch of cash spread out on the bed, so Andrea asked him where all that money came from. Gilbert told her the truth, that he had robbed a bank, but Andrea wasn't convinced. He said he wouldn't hurt anyone, but the next morning Gilbert took Andrea along and robbed a bank right in front of her. Andrea was so shocked by how skilled he was. In just a few moments, Gilbert brought the stolen money and handed it to Andrea. When they finally got home, Andrea made him promise he wouldn't get caught and that he'd quit this life after a while. Meanwhile, outside Tommy's bar, we see the Sins keeping an eye on things. Then Gilbert showed up to meet Tommy, and the two of them started planning to rob a jewelry store again. That's when Tommy said, during the Bishop's robbery, Gilbert was ordered to stay with him. A little later, when Gilbert went to the bathroom, Sins followed him. Sins also warned Tommy that an arrest warrant would be issued against him soon. Then Sins saw Gilbert and got suspicious because there was still silicone on Gilbert's face. Later, Sins called all the costume stores to check. That night, Sanders suddenly got an emergency call from the police station. The police had caught a man drinking and driving, and that guy was none other than Tommy's right-hand thug, Dave. So finally, they got the whole truth about Gilbert from Dave. Dave told them that Gilbert had changed his identity and was living under the name Robert, and that the Flying Bandit was none other than him. Then Dave revealed that Gilbert was planning a huge robbery. After hearing this, Sands immediately rushed to the robbery location. He was really eager to solve the case. First, Sands questioned the shopkeeper from whom Gilbert bought clothes to change his disguise. Then he informed the local police that a theft was about to happen in the city soon. He stationed police officers outside all the banks in the city. Meanwhile, Gilbert and Bishop, disguised as camera repairmen, got busy with their work, not even realizing that several cops were keeping an eye on them. Soon, Gilbert went into a jewelry store and told the shopkeeper to put all the jewelry into a bag. Bishop was watching the door when suddenly he spotted the cops coming. They quickly ran away and barely managed to evade the police, but unfortunately, Bishop left his gun inside the store. Meanwhile, the police were She was following them, but since the uniform they were wearing was the same as a bunch of other people, the cops couldn't figure out who the real thieves were. But Sins wasn't dumb either. He suddenly set off the fire alarm, causing everyone in the mall to panic and run. That's when he spotted Gilbert and Bishop and sent his guys after them. In the end, though, the two managed to shake Sins off and escape. Later, Gilbert called Andrea and told her to pack everything up because they were leaving that very day. Meanwhile, Bishop headed back to Tommy's bar. When Gilbert got home, he saw that Andrea had started having stomach pains and their baby could be born any minute. Without wasting time, Gilbert took her to the hospital, where Andrea gave birth to a boy. Meanwhile, the police raided Gilbert's house, but no one was there. Actually, Gilbert had cleverly taken Tommy's help to move into another house. Anyway, the police started investigating the weapon they found at the shop, while Gilbert was far away, taking care of his baby. Lately, Gilbert has been acting a bit different. It was free, so Andrea got pregnant once again. Then one day, Tommy came to see Gilbert out of the blue. He asked Gilbert about the next plan because he wanted Gilbert to steal again, but Gilbert refused to do it. After Tommy left, Gilbert looked at the money he had saved. It was almost gone. Still, Andrea didn't let him steal again. But the very next morning, while Andrea was sleeping, Gilbert wrote his address in a letter and left the house. When Andrea woke up, he realized that Gilbert had already left when the phone rang. Andrea answered, and Sins asked her for Gilbert's whereabouts. Andrea said he wasn't at home. Then Sins called all the airports to ask around, but it didn't help. By chance, he spotted an ad for another airline in the newspaper that they had missed. His team immediately started checking flights from that airline. Meanwhile, Gilbert was in a hotel room preparing his plan when suddenly Andrea called. Gilbert lied once again, and Andrea was told to be at the airport by 5. After that, he changed his disguise like before, robbed the bank, stuffed his bag, and walked out. Then he noticed a bunch of people wearing clothes just like his inside the bank. Because of that, the cops ended up arresting someone else, and Gilbert took advantage of the chaos to slip out. He called for a taxi, but there weren't any around. Turns out the police had sent all the taxis to another area. That's when Gilbert spotted a car parked nearby, bought it on the spot, and took off. Soon after, Sins arrived at the bank and caught everyone. When his picture was shown, a cop said he had seen Gilbert running towards the car. Meanwhile, Gilbert got through airport security and moved ahead, but by then word had spread that Gilbert was on the run. The airport staff immediately informed Sands, who told them to stop Gilbert's flight. But Hoffman said it was better to catch him as soon as the plane landed. After that, the two started chasing Gilbert by helicopter. When Gilbert stepped off the plane, Andrea came to pick him up, but suddenly the police cars surrounded him from all sides. Gilbert was soon arrested, and Sind Ass questioned him. Andrea was really angry at Gilbert because he stole despite her warnings. When she found out she didn't even know his real name, she divorced him. Later, Tommy came to see Gilbert and said he was the one who testified against him to the police. In the end, Gilbert was sentenced to 20 years for robbing 59 banks. So, did Gilbert get what he deserved? Or were you still thinking until the end, I wish this? Make sure to let me know in the comments if you escaped it. See you in the next video.